Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I've seen so many excellent presentations since the morning that it feels very lucky. I feel very lucky to be presenting this work today in front of my peers. So thank you so much for coming. Today's presentation is, as Libby said, thinking about how Urdu newspapers are designed, the technologies used to design them, and then the rupture and the loss that happens as Urdu newspapers transition from print to web. It is an offshoot of my larger research project where I investigate the challenges of reading and writing Urdu in web browsers. If you recall Paul's keynote address in the morning, he shared an image of the Washington Post, which is obviously in English, and this is an image of the Urdu newspaper. And if you keep that image in your head, you immediately see how radically different the surface of this newspaper is. There's a lot happening. And so one of the really fun things about this project has been how I have expanded my understanding of how diverse reading practices can be in communities, and also really challenged my notions of what it means to design legible text for long form reading, because a lot of the things that you do in English just don't stick in Urdu. And that's been like a really fantastic part of the project for me. Today's lecture is via the web browser. So this is also a working document for me where I often test various things to see how Urdu text behaves in a web browser. And so if you visit, it's hosted off my website, abeerakamran.com/learning.html. So you can visit it. All the sources, citations, images, extra notes, things like that are all in HTML comments here. So if you go on the website, if you just right click and you go to inspect element here, it'll pop this window up and you can access all the extra information. This format of lecture as HTML notes was, I first encountered this through Mindy Su, who was presenting her work, the Cyber Feminist Index. It's a really fantastic project. I've linked Mindy's work right up at the top here, so please visit it whenever you get the chance. Yeah, let's get started. The way that I've structured today's presentation is that I'll spend a little bit of time giving you some context on what the formal characteristics of the script are, because knowing a little bit about that helps you understand the specificities of the aesthetics at play on the surface of the Urdu newspaper. But hopefully I'll be really quick about that and not spend too much time. So if you have any questions, you can always come back to me later and ask them. So Urdu is the language, and it is most commonly written in Nastali, which is a Perso-Arabic script style. Urdu has about 62 million native speakers and about 201 million speakers that speak it to Southern language. So I think it's one of the top 10 spoken languages. It is also Pakistan's national language. It isn't weirdly enough the most spoken language in Pakistan, but it is the language most text is printed in. So in that way, it's kind of a powerful player in the country. Before we begin looking at Nastaliq itself, some of you in the audience will already know that the Arabic script has several canonical writing styles, out of which Nastaliq is one of them. Each of these styles has a best use case scenario. So, for example, Kufi is most commonly used for abstracted lettering on architecture. Nasr is the one you will most commonly encounter for long-form reading in the Arabic-speaking world. And Nastaliq is often reserved for poetic expressions, artwork, all of the beautiful things of life. And here you can see on the left-hand side, I had a beautifully composed Persian poem in the style Persian Nastaliq. It's, I think, from 17th century India. And again, if you want to know anything, also all the notes are here. On the right-hand side, you see the same script, but it's used for a sewing machine manual, and that's from Pakistan. So in Pakistan, we love Nastaliq. We will use it for absolutely everything. Children's books, scientific documents, road signage. There is not a use case that Pakistanis and Urdu readers will not use Nastaliq for. When I say that we love Nastaliq, it isn't hyperbole. You can fight us about it. It's okay. I'm going to very briefly describe this. Nasr, this is a the same word is in two different styles. The top one is what you will most likely encounter as the default writing style within Lebanon, Egypt, UAE, etc., most of the majority Arab-speaking countries. And Nastaliq is the default style, which is here, the one below, that you encounter in Pakistan. And immediately you can see the prominent difference between the two is that Nastaliq has a lovely cascading baseline, and it maintains a lot of contextual forms. And I will explain a little bit more about what those contextual forms are. So here you can see three examples, three words, simple, best, absolute, slab. Each of them uses the letter B at the beginning, the middle, and the end. But regardless of the position of the letter, and regardless of what letter succeeds B, its form remains unchanged. In a lot of the calligraphic writing styles in Arabic, we have a lot of contextual forms that change shape based on position. So whether it's beginning, middle, end, or isolated, but also importantly, based on the word that succeeds it. So here you can see 10 different word pairs. The bit highlighted in red is the letter B, and you can see that it changes form constantly in each of these pairs based on what letter succeeds it. And, this is like Noto Nastaliq. It's a box standard, good font that has this kind of complexity. So within more formal calligraphic practice, you will have even more complexity. And so that's kind of really important and gives real flavor to the Urdu newspaper. Another very important distinction is that in Pakistan, we don't just use any Nastaliq. We use the Lahori Nastaliq, which is a specific flavor of the Nastaliq. The alphabet you see on the right-hand side is written in Persian Nastaliq. I mean, both of them are fonts, so they're adaptations of formal calligraphic letters. But you can see that the main difference here is that the Persian Nastaliq has a real swing towards the right. Like the belly of the Che is really, it's got movement. And in the Lahori Nastaliq style, which is what we use in Pakistan for Urdu, has a lot of verticality. And this is even more apparent when you see a paragraph of text, because it's like vertical, it's like a lot of and there's loads of ideological and practical reasons why those adaptations were made. But one of a famous story of the verticality is that we needed to have forward momentum for a new nation. So this was developed in 1928, the Lahori Nastaliq style, by the calligrapher Abdul Majid Parveen Rakam. 1928 was a very tumultuous time for both all the Indians in United India, because we were asking for independence from the British, but also Muslims in India were asking for a separate nation state for Muslims. And so it has a lot of ideological sentiment that is accrued around the style. And so that verticality is meant to echo progress, I suppose. So, I mean, all scripts are like that. They're anchored in so much baggage. And Nastaliq is no different. Very famous story about Nastaliq, Lahori Nastaliq, is that right at the time that this was developed, we have a very famous, very beloved Urdu poet, Allama Iqbal, who declared at the time that he will simply stop writing Urdu poetry if the calligrapher did not write it in this new, fantastic, iconic style. And since then, we're obsessed with it. This is what you can see here are Urdu newspapers. Interestingly enough, I was very shocked to learn that we were handwriting our newspapers as late as 1981. So these here you can see are handwritten newspapers. I mean, this is of course kind of crazy because mechanical printing was already in East Asia by the 8th century and in Europe by 15th century. And by the 1960s, most of the Arab-speaking countries were printing their newspapers using mechanical type. But in Pakistan, we were meticulously handwriting, and not just any old writing, but really you can see how carefully the pattern and the layering has been done in these objects. This is a scan of the very first time we had a font in a newspaper. So this is 1981. The funny thing about this is that the very first time this font is printed in newspaper, it's printed side by side next to the handwritten. So here you can see handwritten And here you can see it's a font, but also even more interestingly, if I zoom in, the bits where they had to use English. So these two lines are handwritten, and then you're back to a font. And then it's almost like a little bit of hand holding. Don't panic, Urdu readers. The new font looks very close to the handwritten version that you love, that you are used to. And so this practice of printing the font right next to the handwritten articles continued for nearly a year. And I'm sure there are some technological reasons for that as well, probably pending investigation, I guess. But also there's a lot of reassurance to make sure that Urdu readers did not feel they felt equally at home with this new font. This font was designed by Ahmed Mirza Jalil in collaboration with Monotype, and it was declared an invention of national importance. So big deal. It continues to be the most hegemonically used font in Pakistan. Just everywhere. Again, like I said, for all things, we don't care. The most striking aspect of the design of an Urdu newspaper is the design of its headline. This is a newspaper from 2021. And you can see, this is like, the first half of the top half of the newspaper. So that's the masthead. This is the primary headline. And then there are all these like several sub-headlines of varying importance. In the red that you can see that I marked are diacritics. Again, some of you will know that diacritics in the Arabic script are often used as vocalization marks. So, that kind of thing. The diacritics here have zero semantic content. They give no meaning. They are entirely for ornamentation. I think I counted 106 just in that section. So, can you just imagine if I zoom in all the small headlines, even this headline, which is what, like half an inch maybe, gets the special treatment. So it's really, really fantastic to see the kind of ornamentation. This kind of use of diacritics also is often seen in Quranic manuscripts and printed Qurans as well, actually. And so it imbues the newspaper with these sacred undertones. I'd love to see it. Here you can see a newspaper. This is a masthead of a newspaper from 1915. And at the bottom here is a newspaper, again, I think 2020. And they have the same way of filling in the space with markings. And it's a way of, because Nastaliq is organic, irregular, almost white space is left behind because of the way the script looks like. This, I feel, balances out quite nicely. The white space, which otherwise might be quite oppressive, because then all you can see are uneven shapes of white space hanging about. So that's one thing. This is a very short clip that I'm going to show you. Hopefully it'll load. Of the way Urdu newspapers, the headlines are designed. So one of the things that happens is that words are first typed out on a single baseline, and then words are broken up into their conjuncts, and they're shifted, they're layered, they're taken up and down and right and left, and all sorts of layering happens. And then once all of that layering is done, the designer goes back in and specifically places every single diacritic mark in to ornament the space. So for that, the designer needs to have both a good grasp of what the script should look like, what will distort the script, what will beautify it, and also have a good understanding of space so that the ornamentation is, in fact, ornamentation and not clutter. Despite the time and expertise needed to accomplish this, and against the norms of most newspaper design workflows, this is the way it is done for Urdu. We're just going to watch a small clip so that you can videos in a little bit. See, so that's the B conjunct being placed at the top. So you can zoom in, zoom out, back and forth. See the rotation of the nukta. That's a very specific thing that was done. Very minute design decisions made. I was thinking in the morning when Fraser showed those examples of the books, which are these hyper-specific typographic decisions for specific books, and was talking about efficiency. I was like, wow, that is the norm for Urdu newspaper designs. Every single thing is a specific decision made. I'm going to just fast forward here and show you what the ornamentation looks like. And so again, you can see these are placed one by one. There's no automation or anything. So fair to say, it takes a minute. I could honestly watch this, so I'm going to stop. I feel it's very soothing to watch them design this. The other really fantastic thing that happens in these newspapers is that text is encased in these like shapes, cloud-like shapes that you will see in calligraphic manuscripts known as Abeera. Again, it's like these are things you see in precious objects, not in the ephemera, the mundane, the everyday. And this specific practice here, you can see as well, at the bottom, if I maybe zoom in, all these shapes that texts are placed in. This is not just something you see in newspaper. You're as likely to encounter this outside, the shutters of a plumber's in Karachi. And so that's one of the things I really love about Urdu's visual culture, that all text is treated as special. There isn't that hierarchy that only expensive books should be beautifully designed or only, something. It's like any text in the public space is worthy of care, consideration, and respect. So you see a lot of complexity. This is a lithograph from, I think, is this early 19th century? Again, you can see, the same kind of cloud-like forms that get maintained across history, across time, across format. This is a book. What I showed you earlier was obviously a newspaper. And importantly, this isn't just one newspaper. It is literally every Urdu newspaper in the damn country. They all have this kind of design features. They are all designed painstakingly with time and care. So now we get to the bit where Urdu newspapers get online. And Urdu newspapers in web browsers are a funny thing to study, because what happens is a combination, I guess, of the painstaking act of designing these surfaces, and then the obsession that, or maybe use my words carefully, but the familiarity that Urdu readers have for this specific design style. Urdu newspapers will just upload JPEGs almost the printed newspaper on the World Wide Web. And I think it's easy, because what obviously that means is that, and Urdu's data economy, even outside of newspapers, is full of JPEGs, which means that you can't really keyword search anything, which means you read everything, which is, honestly not great for researchers and for knowledge production. And so if you click on this and you see what the website looks like, you can see here, I'm so glad the internet is not as slow as I was expecting it already to slow. Well, okay, yeah. And you can see, so it's a scan. If you were to right-click inspect element, you see it's a JPEG. And then all of the individual news stories are linked in this way. Map. And then you're like, okay, maybe there's at least one newspaper in the country that does not lead with images of the newspaper. But this is the website for the newspaper Jung. And you can see it does not have an image of its newspaper itself. Not to say that it has, it still does. There's an e-paper button that you can click. So it's not that it's like discarded all JPEGs, but shucks, is taking too long. Let me just zoom in here. You can see how very different this is, this kind of a format. There's very little hierarchy. Obviously, the font is not Naskari, but also the font is not great. It makes reading difficult here. There's no clear distinction between what is a subheadline. Barely the headline is big enough. And so you can see that all of that care and a long tradition of design strategy completely ruptures when these things are shifted online. So there's like even small things that happen. Often web developers will use something that is known as the end tag to italicize. Maybe some of you already know that italics don't really exist in the Arabic script. We use other secondary styles for emphasis, for texture, for hierarchy. But web developers will use the end tag. And what that does is, honestly, that's bad practice for English as well. So nobody do that. Because if you will know that distorts. Obliquing text distorted. We know that. But in Urdu, it literally makes it illegible. And you can see that as soon as I take the italic away, it's what, join? Remarkable. That was easy. But even simple things like this clutter Urdu's reading experiences online. So it's not just the big things, it's also small things. Just for fun, I was like, let me see what it would be if I just laid out using CSS positions and Urdu headline in the kind of layering way that is there in the print version. You will see that I gave up on the ornamentation. I was like, thanks, that's enough for me. This is a good experiment. I'm done. It's like I can't do the ornamentation here. You can see that I had to break all of the different bits into specific, sometimes isolated letter, as in here, the letter R. Sometimes, conjuncts like support for support, the English word, it's a transliteration. And each of these you will see here has a specific positioning, top, right, that kind of thing. Is very, it took me again some time to do this, but this is a very fragile construction. Even if we decided to do this, a web browser is a dynamic, responsive environment. Changing something as small as the font size alone puts everything into chaos. And this is actually, honestly, a very basic accessibility thing that browsers do. They regularly will change font sizes based on user needs. And so, so this is not great. Not working. We can't have this. So my research project, as I research the ways, as I research theory, history, all of that stuff, I'm also all the time thinking very much about how we could have a culturally sensitive reproduction for Urdu online. Do we need to give up the sophistication that we have seen in print in the name of modernity or efficiency, or is there a way to have complex Urdu layouts on the web? I honestly am not nostalgic or sentimental. I don't think we need to mimic exactly what we see in print, but surely there's got to be a better way than just using JPEGs for Urdu or using bland, linear, typographic layouts for Urdu. I also don't think the answer is inventing some kind of new tech. I think it's mostly just expanding existing infrastructure, existing technologies to represent more than just the Latin script, because I think everybody deserves to have a cute time on the internet, writing and expressing in the languages that they grew up speaking in. And so stay tuned. Maybe I'll be figured out, maybe I won't. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone have a question? I have one. That's are there lots of people having this conversation about doing this, or are you finding that it's quite a lonely region?
For Urdu, I guess Urdu is one of those things. I mean, no, I don't know if there's been any form of research on the subject. I know loads of young people are interested. There's lots of lecturing that's happening. Maybe not a formal investigation into Urdu typographies, but definitely lots of interest. Again, I'd Pakistan is very passionate about this. So there's interest. Maybe it hasn't yet manifested, but I think it will.
I have a question about the ornamented critics.
Oh yeah, let's go back. Let's look at good-looking things. I love that.
I was just wondering, to a native speaker, how legible is it? Is it?
Oh yeah, and sorry if I didn't say that. Actually, it is in fact very legible.
Okay,
it's and that's I think what I really loved about this project is that I was also taught within a Euro-centric framework. My design education was very much like Swiss, the modernism, blah, blah, blah. And then when I really paid attention to the things that I was always surrounded by, I was like, it doesn't conform to any of those rules, and yet is eminently legible. And in fact, I've done some experiments here. I don't have them. Maybe I'll stick them up on the webpage later after I've done, is what happens when you remove the diacritics. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the white space is it's like a lot of weird chunky. So, I think it's again that thing about what again Pope also was saying in the keynote address is making understanding of who the audience is, what their reading practices are, and then responding to that instead of having top to down rules for legibility and that kind of thing. So no, it's not.
So is it more comfortable for you to read with the sort of ornamental, like
I mean, you're asking me, somebody who loves beautiful things. I don't know. I would have to do an actual study to know what if Urdu readers do, in fact.
Yeah.
But there's been no formal, like, quantitative study. And I guess it's also hard to study these things because there's so many variables that inform outcomes.
And you see this outside of newspapers?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. Too bad I don't have other images, but yeah, there's this particular kind of posters that you see on the street everywhere. They are extremely beautiful. Again, I'll stick them up later on this. So visit the HT website later and I'll stick them. Yeah. You see them on the public space all the time, everywhere. All text is, considered carefully. Yeah.
I think they're absolutely fantastic newspaper front page examples. But it's also interesting about the other things that they do that other papers perhaps don't do. And you can see it there with that example. It's about the size of the photographs, and the photographs are extremely tight and small, much more than lots of newspapers would use them. And looking at the structure, I just wonder if actually the typographic system, the sort of modern online version that you're looking for, is about a combination of the script and the containing frame. That it's actually the joining and the overlapping and the sliding past each other of the containing frames that is a key part of the typographic texture.
True. Yes. That's right. I mean, honestly, that's the next thing that I'd like to do, is to actually construct the frame and then see if that is also fragile, if it'll hold in the various, I mean, like, look at the web browser. You do so many things to it. Like, I have 1,000,001 windows open. So it will be interesting to see, because again, the script itself doesn't conform very neatly to that linear rectangular frame. So then does the frame stay intact, but the lettering inside it spill over? It's honestly, that's one of the things I really want to do. So hopefully we'll do that. Yeah.